2023 was a tumultuous year for federal climate policy, but also a busy one. Let's review some of the major changes. First, in August, the Liberal government released its proposed clean electricity regulations. They lay out a path to a net zero power grid by 2035. But in October, the Liberals walked back part of their carbon tax. The feds announced a 3-year exemption for home heating oil, something that largely benefits Atlantic provinces. Then came a trio of announcements in December. First, the government vowed to cut methane emissions by at least 75% by 2030. They also introduced a framework for an oil and gas emissions cap, and they revealed a plan to ensure all new vehicle sales are electric by 2035. So, where does that leave Canada in the race to reduce emissions? President of the Canadian Climate Institute, Rick Smith, joins me now. Hello, Rick. Welcome to Power in Politics. So, are you encouraged by the policies introduced in 2023, and how optimistic are you 2024 will be a good year for Canada when it comes to meeting climate targets?
Well, I mean, Brett, let's just take a second to set the stage here. We've just come through 2023, the hottest year in recorded human history. I mean, some scientists are looking at the geologic record and saying this was the hottest year potentially in 125,000 years. I mean, we saw just unprecedented flooding, fires around the world, and even here just days into the new year, we continue to see very strange, very warm weather. I mean, I'm here in Toronto. This time of year, the Great Lakes should be at least half frozen, and there's barely any ice at all. So this is the backdrop. These extreme weather events are the backdrop to climate policy in 2023, the source of a lot of anxiety for a lot of Canadians across the country, seeing their communities impacted, their families impacted. So I don't think it's a surprise that not just to the federal level, but provincially, municipally, we saw big movement on climate policy in 2023 right across the country. Communities trying to build in a more resilient way to get ready for that next fire or that next flood. Provinces moving forward with green electricity policies. And at the federal level, very significant steps forward in terms of cleaning up electricity, in terms of moving forward with electric vehicles, and getting Canada competitive in this new clean energy transition.
Well, to your point, Rick, I can't really remember the last time here in Ottawa that we've had rainstorms throughout December and into January with all this green grass. So seeing these extreme weather events occur with more frequency, does that make you more or less optimistic about where Canada is headed?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Ottawa. I mean, my family loves to come to Winterlude every year. And as happened last year, I'm not sure if the canal's going to open this year. So these extreme weather phenomena we see, these hot weather spells, have a real economic impact. I mean, if Ottawa can't put on a good Winterlude this year, if the Rideau Canal doesn't open, that's a big economic impact for Ottawa. So these things have economic consequences for people's livelihoods. And the paradox of climate change in 2023 and 2024 is that these effects have never been more worrisome and more obvious, but the policy that we're seeing, the progress that we're seeing, has never been more significant and more exciting. So I am both concerned and I am encouraged by the actions that our governments are taking across the country.
Well, on that note, Canada has had a bit of a reputation for not meeting targets. How concerned are you that Canada will miss the mark or could miss the mark when it comes to implementing these policies, despite what you describe as significant progress?
Well, I mean, when it comes to climate change, and we're talking about its impacts, when it comes to climate change, we always need to accelerate. We always need to be more ambitious for policies and changes. But the reality is that over the last couple of years, Canada has made some real progress. And my organization, the Canadian Climate Institute, actually measures these things every year. So you can find much more information on this at our website, climateinstitute.ca. And by our calculations, Canada is actually in the ballpark of meeting its 2030 targets. Again, not because of just things the federal government's doing, but because of actions that provincial governments and municipal governments and Indigenous nations are now taking across the country. So there's always more we can do, but we've actually now put together the building blocks. We're on the verge of putting together the building blocks that are going to pay big dividends in terms of reducing emissions and making sure that our economy is going to be competitive in the next few years.
2024 got underway with Saskatchewan halting collection of the carbon tax on natural gas for home heating. We just spoke about that. Are you worried that this and other calls to roll back the carbon pricing scheme might cause Canada to backslide a little bit?
Well, again, I think we live in a federal country. That means that the powers, the policies that are relevant to climate change are shared between provincial governments and the federal government. So it's important that we see everybody pulling together. And though some provinces and some discussions flare up occasionally, the fact of the matter is that we see 8 out of 10 provinces going gangbusters moving forward with clean electricity, because producing electricity in a non-polluting way, reducing carbon in a way that reduces carbon levels, that brings on renewable electricity. Clean electricity is the name of the game when it comes to economic competitiveness in the next few years. We see 8 out of 10 provinces moving forward, greening their electricity grids. We see the vast majority of provinces moving forward in an aggressive fashion, building out electric vehicle charging stations. We see many municipalities across the countries moving forward, trying to make sure that more heat pumps are installed as a way of decarbonizing the buildings and the homes that we live in. So, yes, I'm always concerned when some debates flare up, but by and large, we see a lot of common ground across the country and a lot of things moving forward together.
And Rick, what would you like to see from the feds this year? If you could set their green New Year's resolution for 2024, what would you make it? This is a period of intense economic anxiety. I mean, anybody that has a mortgage is watching interest rates. Anybody that rents is watching their rents increase. We're all astonished on a daily basis by the cost of food in the grocery store. And the fact of the matter is that electric vehicles, compared to the gas-powered alternative, will save people money. Heat pumps, compared to natural gas alternatives, by and large across the country, will save people money. So I think the federal government and provincial governments need to double down on some of these new technologies, because they're not only more efficient, not only are they going to reduce greenhouse gases and be better for the planet, but they're actually going to save consumers money at a time when that really matters. And I think we need to get that message across to Canadians across the country who are making these choices in terms of what sort of furnace they buy, what sort of car they buy. We need to get that message across to people as a priority. Do you think the country is doing good enough job of getting that message across right now?
Well, again, when it comes to climate change, we always need to push for more, because the effects are all around us. But trends are encouraging. Anybody that walks around the streets of any province in this country, any city in this country, sees more and more electric vehicles literally on a daily basis. I mean, British Columbia, as one example, electric vehicle purchases are now more than 25% of new vehicle purchases, and that's come on strong over the last few years, and there's no indication that trend's going to change anytime soon, because electric vehicles are fun to drive and because they save their owners money. So I'm encouraged, not just in terms of the big policy changes that I see happening. I mean, our organization spends a lot of its time talking to decision makers, talking to governments across the country, but I'm also encouraged as a consumer, as a Canadian, as a father, walking around the streets, seeing more heat pumps in the size of buildings, seeing more electric vehicles on the streets. The changes are all around us.
All right, we have to leave it there. Rick Smith is the president of the Canadian Climate Institute. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks so much.